All right, ready to dive into something pretty amazing? We're going deep into the journey of a chicken egg.
Fascinating stuff. And, most people don't think much about it.
I know I didn't, at least not until I started researching for this episode.
It really makes you appreciate what goes on behind the scenes to get those eggs to our tables.
Exactly, and to guide us, we're using this awesome video from Virtual Chicken, an educational channel from Auburn University.
Ah, Auburn. They're a powerhouse when it comes to poultry science.
For sure. So let's jump right in. One thing that totally blew my mind was the fact that hens only have one ovary.
Yeah, that's right. One ovary. Unlike most female animals that have two.
So how does that even work? How can one ovary produce an egg, almost every day?
It's incredibly efficient. That one ovary it's like a super ovary.
Okay, but how does it keep up with that kind of demand? I mean, is it just one yolk hanging out waiting for its turn?
No, it's way more organized than that. Imagine the ovary like a factory floor, okay? Full of these little yolk-filled follicles, each at a different stage of development.
Follicles. So each one of those is a potential yolk.
Exactly. Each follicle takes about 2 weeks to grow from tiny to full size, and then
Oh, wow. So it's like a constant production line with one follicle maturing each day to release the yolk.
you got it. And once that yolk is ready, it embarks on a wild journey through the oviduct.
The oviduct. What's that?
It's a long, winding tube, almost 2 feet long if you uncoiled it, where the yolk gets transformed into the egg we know and love.
2 feet long. Seriously. That's longer than I thought. What happens in all that space?
Well, the oviduct's divided into 5 sections, each with a specific job to do.
5 sections. Wow. Okay, break it down for me. What happens in each one?
Okay, so first up is the infundibulum. This is like the entry point where the released yolk gets caught.
God, like what if it misses?
It pretty much has to catch it. That's the only time the yolk is vulnerable to fertilization.
Oh, I see. And it's also a point where bacteria could contaminate the egg, right?
Right. Very important point.
So high stakes right from the start. Okay, what's next?
Next is the magnum. This is where the egg white forms around the yolk.
Ah, the egg white. Okay, so how does that happen?
In about 3 hours, the egg white wraps itself around the yolk as it travels through the magnum.
3 hours? That seems like a long time for just the egg white.
Well, there's more to it than just adding the white. The yolk spins in the magnum, and that creates those ropey strands of egg white called chalazae.
The yolk spins. Seriously.
Yep. And those chalazae are important. They keep the yolk centered and protect it.
Okay, that makes sense so it doesn't bump against the shell later on.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So where does the egg go after this magnum spinning?
Onto the isthmus, where the shell membranes are added, giving the egg a more defined shape.
So at this point, it's not even round yet.
Nope, it's kind of prune-shaped at this stage.
Weird. So then where does it go to get its hard shell?
To the shell gland. That's where the egg spends a full 20 hours.
Whoa, 20 hours? For the shell, what takes so long?
It's a complex process. First, another layer of egg white is added, then the shell itself is formed.
And I'm guessing that shell has to be pretty strong to protect the chick inside.
Exactly. It's made from calcium carbonate, the same stuff seashells are made of. Then, to top it off, a protective coating called the cuticle is added.
So it's like a tiny construction project, and it takes a whole day to complete.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so what happens after the shell is finished?
Well, then it's off to the vagina, and then finally the egg is laid, or to use the technical term, oviposition.
Oviposition.
God,
So the egg's been through this incredible journey and it's finally out in the world? That's it, right?
not quite. There's one more surprise that happens after the egg is laid.
Really? What is it?
The air cell, that little pocket of air we see at the blunt end of the egg, it actually forms after the egg is laid. As the egg cools down outside the hen, the contents contract, and that creates the air cell.
Wow. So even after it's laid, the egg is still changing. That's amazing.
Right. And speaking of changes, we've only just begun to explore the egg's journey. Are you ready to see what happens next?
Absolutely. Let's crack on.
Welcome back. Let's get back to those amazing eggs.
So we've seen how an egg is made, but what happens next? Once it's laid.
Well, they face a fork in the road, so to speak.
A fork. What do you mean?
Well, some eggs are destined to become, fluffy little chicks.
Right, the fertilized ones.
Exactly. Those head to a hatchery. But the unfertilized ones,
The ones we eat for breakfast.
those go off to a processing plant to be, cleaned and packaged.
So that's what I wanted to ask about. What happens at the processing plant? It's kind of a mystery to me.
Well, first things first, hygiene is key.
I would hope so.
Absolutely. They wash and sanitize each egg really thoroughly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then they go through this cool process called candling.
Candling, what's that?
It's how they check for imperfections, like they shine a bright light through each egg.
Oh, so they can see inside.
Exactly. They can spot things like blood spots or cracks.
Wow, that's pretty neat. It's like an X-ray for eggs.
That's a great way to put it. And it ensures that only the best quality eggs make it to, the grocery store.
So after candling, is that where they sort them by size? Like
Mm.
small, medium, large?
You got it. They have these weight standards for each size. It's all carefully regulated.
And what about those grades I see on egg cartons? Like grade A or grade AA? What's the difference?
Those grades are based on the appearance, both inside and out.
So things like the yolk, the white, and the shell all matter.
Exactly. They even look at the size of the air cell.
Wow, I had no idea. So much went into grading eggs.
It's all about quality control, making sure consumers get the best product.
Well, it's good to know they take it so seriously. So after all that, they're finally ready to be packaged, right?
Yep. They pack them into cartons, usually by the dozen, and then they're shipped off to stores.
And that's the end of their journey. From hen to, well, my refrigerator.
For the unfertilized ones, yes. But we can't forget about those fertilized eggs headed to the hatchery.
Oh, right. I'm really curious about that. What goes on in a hatchery?
It's basically a high-tech nursery for eggs. They carefully control the temperature and humidity.
To make it like a nest, right?
Exactly. They need to create the perfect conditions for the embryos to develop.
So how long does it take for the chicks to hatch?
About 21 days for chicken eggs.
3 whole weeks? That's a lot of waiting.
It is, but it's an amazing process. And when those chicks finally hatch,
I bet it's magical.
it really is. And then those chicks grow up and eventually lay their own eggs, starting the cycle all over again.
It's incredible to think about all the steps involved, from the hen to the hatchery or to our homes.
It's a complex system, but it works. And it brings us one of our most versatile foods.
I have to say, this deep dive has given me a whole new perspective on eggs.
Me too. And there's still more to uncover.
I can't wait to hear what else you have to share. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. But, one thing that's always on my mind is food safety.
Oh, absolutely, especially with eggs.
Right, because we hear so much about things like salmonella.
Salmonella is definitely a concern. But the good news is that producers and processors are really on top of it these days.
So they're doing everything they can to keep our eggs safe.
Exactly. They have all sorts of measures in place to minimize the risk.
Like what? Can you give me some examples?
Well, it starts at the farm with biosecurity.
Biosecurity, what's that?
It's all about controlling access to the poultry houses, keeping the birds healthy, and maintaining really strict sanitation.
So it's like creating a safe and clean environment from the very beginning.
Right. And then during processing, they wash and sanitize the eggs, which also helps eliminate bacteria.
And I remember you talked about candling, where they check for imperfections. Does that help with safety too?
Definitely. It allows them to remove any eggs that might be, compromised in any way.
So it's like a multi-layered approach to safety. That's reassuring.
It is. And we as consumers can play a role, too, by handling eggs properly at home.
Oh, that's right. What are some things we should keep in mind?
The most important thing, refrigerate your eggs as soon as you get home from the store.
Okay, that's something I always do. But why is it so important?
Because keeping them cold slows down bacterial growth, so they stay fresher and safer.
Got it. Any other tips?
Make sure you cook your eggs thoroughly. Both the yolk and the white should be firm.
No more runny yolks for me then.
And always wash your hands with soap and water after handling raw eggs.
To prevent cross-contamination, right?
Exactly. If you follow those simple steps, you can enjoy your eggs without worry.
Well, this has been an incredible journey. I've learned so much about eggs, things I never even thought about before.
Me too. It's amazing what you discover when you really dig deep into something.
And I have to say, I have a whole new appreciation for how much work goes into getting those eggs from the farm to my table.
It's a true testament to the dedication of everyone involved, from the farmers to the processors.
So as we wrap up this excellent deep dive,
Nice one.
what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this?
I think it's this. The next time you're about to crack an egg, remember everything that went into it, from that single ovary to the incredible journey through the oviduct to the careful handling and processing.
It really makes you appreciate something we often take for granted.
Exactly. It's a story of science and nature and human ingenuity all rolled into one.
Well said. We hope you've enjoyed learning about the amazing world of the chicken egg.
And until next time, keep exploring and keep asking questions.
That's what the deep dive is all about. Thanks for listening.